Hey, welcome to the Curran Crew. This is Dr. Tom Curran.
And this is Kari.
We're going to talk a lot about the gift that God has given you in your children and as parents trying to raise them well. All right, let's get started. So on Wednesday night, we had a wonderful time. Kari, you're looking at me and you're laughing and you're thinking, what is going on here?
I got a gift card for a Schwartz Brothers restaurant for $100. And I was like, okay, I got to use this gift card. It's been in my wallet for 2 years. And I wanted to, be on a good budget this month. So I said, let's actually use this gift card. It's summer. We have babysitters here. Our girls are home. And let's go out for an amazing dinner. Well, instead of going to Daniel's Broiler, I was thinking Ruth Chris. And then instead of a broiler, it was a steakhouse. So you know how bad I am with mixing up things and mixing up words. So we ended up going to Ruth Chris about 3 weeks ago. And we're like, oh, this will be a great dinner. We can order
This is
really
wonderful. We can
we'll
order
share a
stuff
steak,
we would never order.
never buy. So we had $100 to spend. We're so excited. And I go to give the card to the waiter, and he looks at me and he's like, oh, we're not a Schwartz Brothers. I'm like, what? I thought this was, he's like, that's Daniel's Broiler. I'm like, oh. I just started laughing. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
This is so
You take out the other credit card and you're thinking, that was thank goodness we enjoyed the meal, right?
So, and it was my life. It's such a
good.
struggle. I couldn't keep it all straight. So
Well, all that meant is that we got to go out on Wednesday night for our anniversary.
See, I just saw that we spent $100 on a dinner that we didn't have to spend. Oh, well, that's okay.
So on Wednesday night, we had a wonderful time, and it gave us a chance to be able to enjoy some food that, wow, we'd never been there before, and it was just delightful, the food. And
the jazz band, and the view, and everything about it was great.
It was a great way to honor what God has done in our lives, just the gift of being married, the gift of the family God's given to us. And we bring that out today because there's a phrase that has become quite popular to describe parenting, or a mode of parenting that can be rather, let's call it overbearing or hovering over. And what do we call that?
The helicopter
The
parenting,
helicoptering parenting.
Just like that overbearing, overscheduled type parent that is all consumed with their child's life. And it's to the point where there's just suffocation. It's almost debilitating to the child.
Well, but it's not, we don't think of it like that when we're doing it.
Oh, no,
we've done
the parent
that.
doesn't think that at
I
all.
remember that funny story. We were at the U Village. University
Village is kind of a yuppie outdoor shopping mall, very upscale. And you're out there with like 6 kids and playing, and then
I was out there with several other families
and parents.
Yeah. Or most of them were guys. The guys with
because all the wives were shopping.
The wives were shopping. The guys were there with
a perfect setup.
With their child or maybe a couple of kids, and I was there and I was trying to manage and kind of watch a bunch of kids when Ariana at that time she must have been about 5 years old,
6,
maybe, or 6. So she's like 11 now, and she went down the slide like face first and just kind of tumbled a bit, and she hit her mouth on the bottom of the slide and she started to cry. She kind of screamed, and then she started to bleed.
Well, especially if you hit your lip, that produces a lot of blood. It always looks way worse than it is. That's for sure.
And immediately I get over there to pick her up, and I'm holding her, and within like 10 seconds, I swear, within 10 seconds, I had like 5 parents around me.
Dads,
moms,
the moms came
grandmoms,
out.
Great-grandmothers.
I
had
scream.
people parachuting in, and they were just like all around me. I was like, there was like I hit a beehive.
And I think I looked out the window from where I shot. I go, oh, Tom got this. He has lots of help. He'll be fine. I just remember someone got you an ice pack. Someone ran to the restaurant and got you like a bucket of ice. Someone else grabbed a washcloth they pulled out like first aid kits from their diaper bags. Tom and I are like, who are these people? how can they have all this stuff with them? Because, at the time we had enough kids where we're like, oh, we'll grab a diaper and a wipe and we're good. We didn't, pack the whole house to go anywhere. And
But it was like, hey, can I help you? Do you want me to call somebody? Can I get
amazing.
something for you? And it was like, wow, this was intense.
we are not in Federal Way anymore.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is that it was kind of a recalling of a memory. If we flashed back another, say, 7 or 8 years, back to the time when we were given the gift of our first child, Mary Grace, back in, this was probably then, maybe in the year 2000, right?
Years
So
ago.
15 years ago. And we just had a few-month-old baby, and as she's starting to crawl and then walk, and it was amazing how we, at that time, Kari, we were just attentive parents, doing what parents ought to do.
I love watching new parents because I can just think back to, oh, those are the good old years when we didn't really know what we didn't know, and just incredibly attentive. And I mean, you need that for your later on, life experiences. But we were at a house with good friends of ours, and they were allowing their 3 or 4 month old to scream in the car seat. And they're just swinging that car seat. And we're talking to them. But Tom and I are both kind of like, aren't they going to get the baby out? Aren't they going to hold him? And this was their third child. And they're like, oh, he just does this. They're swinging him back and forth. And we left there so disturbed. How could they allow their baby to scream like that?
I
and
thought they were
cry?
good parents. I didn't know. This is awful. My goodness. This is, this was just it was a scandal to us that this faithful Catholic family was allowing that baby to just scream in the car seat, and all he was doing was rocking the car seat and allowing that. Why wouldn't you pick the baby up? Why would? And I was like, oh my! I was inside of me almost trembling. It was, and then I think about times when we would go someplace and our youngest child was now able to walk around, and I would be talking with someone at the party, but I would constantly be looking at my child, constantly looking at Mary Grace. Okay, where is she now? Where is she now? And then if she just walked out of my eyesight, I'd say, do you mind walking this way with me?
Are you serious?
And I would go follow her. I'll say, I'll be back in 1 minute. And I'd go around and I'd kind of look at the door from the doorway. I say, we can talk from here. And so I can kind of get a view of her.
Literally, you have to watch her the whole time.
Oh my goodness. It was unbelievable.
I think I was off visiting with the ladies.
And you knew because I was the, oh man, I wasn't just like a helicopter. I was an Apache attack helicopter, right? And I was just.
But Tom, you still kind of do that at parties. You want to make sure you know where everyone is, even though it's, safe and it's with friends. You're like, have you seen so-and-so? Have you seen so-and-so? Oh yeah, they're about a half hour ago. I saw them go down the street. They're fine. They're with a bunch of kids. Which is great. This is great because this is how you were raised, and this is the gift you bring to our family. I'm on the other side of that fence. So
we start with that experience as first time parents many years ago. Helicoptering was very much part of our lives. Now, when we fast forward 15 years with 9 kids, you're referencing a very different experience. Where now, if we go to a party. Like we were at that 4th of July party with a whole bunch of people in an environment that involved water and lots of people we didn't know.
Oh, that's right. A lake. And we had a 2-year-old who didn't swim and a 4-year-old who couldn't swim. So you really had to be on your toes. Tom and I were constantly making the rounds.
And I wasn't. I was playing pickleball for quite a long time.
Well, we were checking in, but we had helpers. Once you have the older kid, it's so much easier. I said to this mom at this party, she had 4 kids, 5 or 6 and under, and they were just struggling, especially if you have a baby. And then they had the toddler. And I was like, oh, I don't miss those years at all. And I mean, so I sat and visited with her and talked with her, and she literally started crying because she's just so overwhelmed with where she is in life. And I said to her, I would take my 9 kids over that baby in a heartbeat, just because, meaning that the baby was more work for me than my 9 children as far as being at an event, because you have so many older kids to help and to pitch in and to share. And it's just different, especially when your family's young. It's a very hard place. Anyhow, with that being said, how you parent in these environments really depends on kind of how you grew up and also what you've experienced thus far. I have a funny story of parenting, Tom, when about 3 winters ago, we had 2 feet of snow, about 3 winters ago, I think. And we were out of school for a week, and the kids were just ecstatic. I mean, it was just like that late night snow. You see it falling by the road light, and they just can't wait to get, even though it's midnight, they're like, let's go, whoa, there's 3 inches. And we didn't have snow pants. We didn't have, we had warm jackets, but not snow coats. I said, just throw some jeans on, and under your jeans, put on some tights. You'll be fine. We didn't have enough boots for the kids. I think they had 2 pair of boots. I said, that's okay. Just wear tennis shoes and double up on socks. And I know we didn't have enough gloves to go around, but, we made it work. I think they even put socks
on for gloves.
Or double socks, especially after the first run of going outside. They bring in all their wet stuff, throw it in the dryer. And then they'd go out again before it dried, so they just throw on socks. And we had a blast. It was a whole week of playing in the snow. Well, fast forward 2 weeks, I go to this auction with these friends of ours, and I asked the dad, hey, did your kids enjoy the snow? And this family was a homeschooling family. And he's like, well, no, we're kind of cooped up. I was like, oh, well, didn't you guys go out in the snow? No, we didn't really go out in the snow. I was like, what? You didn't go out in the snow? He's like, well, it was kind of cold, and we didn't really have snow pants or gloves, and the kids didn't have the gear. It was just wet, and, by the time you get them all dressed to go out, they're cold. They all want to come back in. And I was thinking in my mind, you missed out on this amazing opportunity to have a great time, fun, and just problem solve. How do you get out in the snow if you don't have all the gear? I don't know. It just, for me, was just a turning point of, wow, everyone parents very differently, and how, someone sees an opportunity, another person sees a problem, that kind of thing. So,
well, today on our program, we're going to be focusing in on some of those ways that we as parents are called to do the work of human formation. How do we help our children to develop, and how so much of that development activity, so much of what we might consider a developmental opportunity, is traced back to our parenting style. So the idea of helicoptering or hovering over our kids tends to provide a very strong sense of protection. I'm going to provide a covering for you. I'm going to ensure that nothing bad happens to you. I'm going to accompany you every step of the way. In fact, oftentimes I'll go right in front of you and I'll clear the path, and if needed, I'll actually take care of it for you. But on the other way, stretching out to the other end, there's this idea of free-range parenting. Kari, what's free-range parenting? It's something I hadn't even heard of before.
Oh, you hadn't?
No, I never heard of that before. We talked about it with my brother recently.
Well, and I think it's been around for a few years, but it's based on that notion that we can kind of give our children the same freedom that we had when we were kids growing up, where you would leave. Well, how would you grow up in the summertime when you leave the house at 9 in the morning and come back at 5 o'clock for dinner, and then maybe you come back for lunch? Do you remember?
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. We certainly had a sense of space and freedom to go out and about, where my parents, we wouldn't be checking in on all the exact details of where we were and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I think you'd see a bunch of bicycles in the front lawn of someone's house, and you kind of knew that's where all the kids were hanging out. But there wasn't this scheduled morning, afternoon with different activities, different sporting events, different lessons, this real intentional kind of planned play dates with other kids, because there was this just general trust that the neighborhood you grew up in or where you were being raised was safe. And so you got to kind of bump into all these difficulties with playing ball, or conflicts with friends, or trying to work out issues when who's on whose team, or where are we headed, or what are we doing. And just this kind of freedom to be young and have that sense of, I can trust in the general goodness of mankind, and I don't have to worry as a kid. And of course, parents at that time really didn't worry either. And so that has really been lost. So this young columnist from New York said, she wrote an article a few years back that allowed her, where she said how she let her 9-year-old son ride the subway in New York City by himself. And it just had this huge like viral effect of immediate attention, because some parents are like, how could you possibly be that careless? Where other parents are like, oh, that's great. We don't see that nowadays. Why is that? Why is there no longer this sense that we can let our kids go out and have fun and they can check in a couple hours later, where we don't have to know exactly where they are every minute of every day and every night kind of thing? So that's free range parenting, but it takes all sorts of forms. It's not just going out and playing. It takes form in the home. It takes form when you go on outings. It takes form when you go shopping at a store. Just how do you let your kids have freedom and problem solve and uncover and discover and grow in self-sufficiency and create whatever it is, and also have them be safe?
Well, and so there you go. So that safe is that sense of covering, so that you have this helicoptering, right? Which, oh boy, you should watch over them, but give them lots of space. Or the other way of saying is, well, you give them lots of space, but you also want to watch over them. So you can see the helicoptering and the free range are meant to, if you will, stay in a living tension.
Well, I don't think parenting has a good
connotation.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like you make fun of people like, oh, there's a helicopter parent, because you're like, ha, ha, ha. I remember when I was that naive and had to watch my daughter every moment at every, just kidding, honey. But I think there is this kind of spin-off of this nanny or mother. She had several children, and she grew up in the east side of Manhattan. I think this book just came out, so I don't know what I'm talking about, but I grabbed it and just read a chapter. But how she was just so aghast at how controlling and contrived and planned and intentional these kids' lives were, based on where these parents wanted them to end up in college. And it was like from the time they were 3 months old to 5 months old, could they communicate? And then to 1 and 2 year olds, they'd have coaches come in and help them with their play dates and how to share and how to engage.
Play date coaches. Isn't that stunning?
They have too much money.
The wrong people. Instead of coaching executives, let me coach little 1-year-olds on how to have a play date.
And she was saying how these families, these relationships would start as young as 2 years, 3 years old, as to what nursery care they would get into, what program they get into, because they'd be interviewing these kids at 2-3 years old to get them into the elite, the top, which would then predict where they would go for elementary school, which would then have a fallout as to where they go for middle school, then high school, and then of course that would determine if you got into Harvard or Princeton or wherever it was that they wanted their kids to go. And so it was just this intense kind of, and I don't even know if you could call it helicoptering. It's just this controlling kind of, I have 2 kids and we need to have them marry the right person and have the right, breed of kids, and we want them to be in the right influences of other families. And it was just so, to her, it was so insane. And I think she actually went on to have like 5 kids, and she's like, forget this. I'm just going to enjoy my kids and have fun with them. But I think she's just saying, do people even realize this is going on? I think they're in their own little bubble in New York, in Manhattan. I don't know.
Well, that's like its own culture, its own subculture within the wider culture. But it really points to something. It points to elements associated with living today. Living today is a bit different than how we grew up. Right? Today we have I think a hypersensitivity to certain aspects of protecting your kids. Let's not even call it helicoptering, but even just the reality of having smaller families. The idea of neighborhoods are going to be natural, safe places where lots of kids are, and you can just allow your kids to go out and about, and they're going to be able to freely go into the homes of their friends or homes of neighbors that, well, because we all know each other and it's sort of leave it to beaver and this sort of thing. That just doesn't exist, or it's very, very, very rare.
You have to find that neighborhood or seek it out, especially with working moms. They're not home any longer to create that kind of environment where you can welcome kids in, and vice versa. There's a lot of planned time that kids are watched because the parents are working in the summer, and so the kids actually have to go to programs or have someone come and stay with them. It just doesn't have the same. I think that's one element that was missing from nowadays is and when you only have 1 or 2 kids, then it's like, okay, I need all my eggs in one basket. I need to help this child be the best that he or she can be, because there's just real fear that what happens if they don't make the certain soccer team or volleyball team, what happens if they don't get on varsity, what happens if they don't get the academic grades to get into that great college that me and Dad went to. And I mean, it goes on, but there is this kind of fear over, I need to help my child in every way, in every possibility, both financially, emotionally, spiritually, hopefully, to help them be successful. And it's just kind of out of order. There's such an emphasis on it that it almost leaves parents hyper competitive, hyper focused. And I don't say that we're not part of that. I can fall into that just as quickly as any other mother, especially if we're competitive as moms.
Or comparative.
But it's just really, I can see how it's unhealthy, and it really trusts in my power and in my ability, and it leaves God and faith kind of on the sideline. It's almost like, well, if it helps, we'll take God and faith, but if it's a hindrance, we'll just leave it. It's not at the center of how kids are being raised.
So let's dive in and let's talk a little bit about how that can impact, for instance, opportunities that are right in front of us. They're dripping on every day in our hands to help our kids to stretch into a skill development, being able to gain a bit of confidence just as an individual, or to be able to navigate situations that are unknown to them. Let's just start with a story that I smile at because I think it's a beautiful one, and it's something that we don't ordinarily, I think of. So, Kari, there was, I think, a time when you were needed to get a couple of items in a supermarket, Safeway or wherever, and you pulled up with our 12-passenger van, and you had several kids with you in the car, but you didn't really have anyone old enough to watch the kids
I know you're
in
talking
the car.
about. We had gone, we went to, I had several kids. I had 3 kids at St. Vincent, and then I had Ariana on down. I had 4 kids in the car, and I had a baby, and I also had like a toddler, and it was early in the morning. I think I might have still even been in my pajamas. And our Ariana is a daughter who's rule follower, problem solver, find a way kind of girl, very self-sufficient.
And at this time, she was about 8 years old.
I think she was in 1st or 2nd grade, and I was homeschooling her. And everyone wanted donuts. I was like, hey, let's go get donuts. We were all hungry, and it just sounded like a great idea. And so I said to her, Ariana, you can go in. You've seen me use the card. You've pressed the number for my PIN before. And you're just going to go into the back of the store and get a bag and get like 3 maple bars and 3 chocolate or whatever it was. She's like, okay, Mom, I can do that. I said, okay, are you sure? Oh, yeah, Mom, I can do that. And then just put the card in. Yeah. And then I said, if you need any help, just ask someone in those coats, those red coats. They'll help you. They're really nice, and they'll help you if you're not sure how to use the card, if you need help with the PIN. And she's like, okay, I can do that. And so sure enough, she went in, and out she comes 10 minutes later. And I said, how'd it go? Oh, it's fine. I said, did they ask you where your mom was? No, they just said, here's your donuts. And did you have any trouble with the PIN? No, it was fine. And she's like, I got the donuts. Here they are. I mean, she's really excited. And it was like the first dawning awareness for me as to, we can allow our kids to do a lot more than we think. And now this was done out of necessity because I had so many kids. Sometimes in a big family, and this is definitely true in how I grew up and how I was raised, moms and dads just can't do it all. They just can't be there for every practice, for every game, for every event. They aren't able to afford everything that you would desire as a child or as a young teen. And so you have to find a way. Some people would say it's survival of the fittest. I just felt like it was this opportunity to solve a problem. And how do you do that well? So with Ariana in this situation, it was like I got to the point where I had so many children, I just couldn't, no longer could do everything. And so I really started to empower them to do things. Now, I don't know if you'd call that free range. I don't think I realized I was free ranging.
See, I don't really consider that free range.
I just was trying to help, make things run smoothly. And
see, I think I call that formative parenting, right? So as a parent, you have a responsibility. We have a responsibility to form our children, not simply in spiritual matters, but in let's call it human formation. So we don't normally put on our sort of skill development list. We would put things like, well, maybe learn how to bake or learn how to set a table and use your fork, and maybe even learn how to do the laundry and learn how to sew. These are things. But what about learn how to go into the store, find the items you need, take it through the checkout, and use a debit card to pay for it? And it's like, wow, when do you actually think of teaching your kids how to do that? But what a valuable thing. You could just trace out real quickly what the things that would that form in Ariana? Would form in her a sense of independence. Would form within her a sense of, I can confidently walk among adults. And I don't have to be afraid. I don't have to be nervous. I don't have to say, I can't do this because mommy's not here or daddy's not here to take my hand and to do this. I've seen them do it. I know how to do it. I can do this. Wow, mom and dad trust me. Or,
That's great, Tom.
how powerful
I like how you
is
say that. Yeah, here I'm trying just to survive, and you're like, hey, no, this is a great empowerment opportunity for them. And I think as we walk with our kids, we do see that more and more. Okay, there's a problem. We're not sure of their safety. We're not sure if they can do this. How can we help solve it? I mean, often I go into Costco, and my kids just scram. And lately this summer, they're all with me, and they want to go check out the Halloween costumes that are now out. They want to go get the school supplies. They want to go try out the samples. Some of them want to go to the food court. They've saved their money and they want to buy a churro and a non-fat yogurt. And when we go to Costco, it's basically you have to have a buddy. And yes, you can go do and shop and look around. And this is where I'm headed. They know my whole little routine through Costco, but I do give them that freedom. I mean, it's not like
that's free range.
It's not
I
like you can't get out of Costco without a receipt or something. They probably wouldn't let them leave without an adult. They're pretty tight at the door, but they know that none of them are going to walk out of the store and they're not going to quote unquote get kidnapped. I just have none of those fears. I'm more just like, yeah, go find, discover, explore. Do what you need to do. I need to get my groceries. And then the great thing is they're not like, Mom, I want to buy this. Mom, I want to buy this. Can we put this in the cart? Can we get this? I want this. It's like, no, they're all gone. Except when we get to the samples and then the adults there that chaperone the little samples tables say, do you have a parent with you? Do you have a parent with you? So walk me through the eating section. Mom, you got to say yes to the fudge. Mom, you got to say yes to the piece of ham or cheese or whatever it is. But it's actually a great place to allow them to do that. And now, again, I have kids that are 13, 12, that are older that can go with the 2 and the 4-year-old, and they will push them in a cart and they will go do this. And I trust them. I know their predisposition. I know how they are and how they'd handle situations. So it's not like I do this when they're 3, 4, 5, 6.
Of course. So let's take a look at ways, because there are a number of wonderful examples that, we wrestle with in a very living way regarding how do I provide that sense of cover. And yet, how do I ask them to stretch and grow themselves, knowing that, look, you're safe, I trust this situation, and I trust you in the situation. That's what we're saying. You don't have to live in fear in this world, that right outside your door is somebody that's going to grab you, and all of a sudden there's going to be an Amber Alert for you. And I think sometimes that's a bit of the situation that we're facing. I can remember we had a birthday party for one of our children, and we will always say to the parents who are dropping their kids off, you are welcome to be here for as long as you want. What a great chance for them to be able to say, let's just get to know this family better. Let's see how they operate. Let's see how they live.
Yeah, and I think another thing is when you have children, and maybe you have 1 or 2, you love to see how they interact with other kids because you don't really get to see a lot of that interaction, especially at a party. You see, okay, how does my son fit into the game, or how does my daughter interact with the other girls, and how do they stand out? Or because it's a great thing as a parent when you get to be in a classroom or you get to be in a setting where there's socializing going on, and you can start to see, oh, these are some things my child is good at. These are some things that maybe he or she needs to help with. So I think that there's also that level of curiosity and just wanting to be there. It was just funny to Tom and I because we'd be like, hey, we're gone. Let's go on a date. Let's leave. How many can we leave?
And that happens often enough, right?
I mean, most of the parents, and even parents with just one will just leave their child and they'll go on a date. So it was just funny.
So here's another example. Let's take a look at some of the different categories where this type of thing can happen. So how about that sense of having a child feel safe? So our son, John Luke, 8 years old, he was going to a new soccer team, and we drove to the field, and it was a new field for him. It was a different location, and he didn't know anybody on the team, and so we got to the field, and he wanted to make sure that I was going to accompany him down to the field. So we walked down to the field, and I was standing at the edge of the track. The soccer field was within the track. And I said, go ahead. And he just was looking at me, just kind of thinking, Dad, are you going to leave? And it just so happened the traffic was bad and all this. I said, you know what? No, I'll stay and I'll just get some stuff done right here. And so he felt then that sense of safety to go run off and be with the team because he knew Dad was going to be there. That's not helicoptering. That's providing a sense of safe covering over your child. I know I'm okay because Dad is here. So that was practice number 1. I dropped him. I was going to drop him off. I stayed for the practice number 2. Kari's driving.
I have errands to do. I need to get through things. I took him to his field, and Tom was taking other kids to practices. We're now in the throes of fall soccer, even though it's August. Fall season has already started in Federal Way, and so
on this night we have 4 kids on 4 different teams practicing at 3 different times in 3 different fields.
So I said, John Luke, I am not going to walk you to your field. He had to go down this really big hill. It's an excuse. So I have to run over to get something at a swimming pool. Then I have to go grab something at the store, and then I need to and I need to get back. So I'm just going to let you drop you off. Oh no, Mom, I need you to go with me. I said, really? You want me to walk you to the field? He's like, yeah, I think I need you to. It's like, okay, I'll walk you halfway. So I threw the car in park, walked him to the top of the hill, and I watched him. He wanted to show me also where he practiced, and he wanted to show me this really cool playground in case I wanted to bring Liliana and Luciana to one of his practices. He's like, it's right over there, Mom. They would love it. I mean, it's really cute. So I watched him run down the field, and of course I came back 5 minutes before his practice was over. It was the night of the debate. I was listening to it on my phone. And up he comes, and we leave, and it was fine. So the second time, it was even better. I think this happens in progression where you slowly let them be more and more independent. I know with Annalise, who's our first grader, will be first grader, her soccer practice is way across the field. I usually have Lily and Lucy with me. I don't want to take them out of the van. So I will just, initially the first practice, we check in. I let the coach know my situation. And then I say, she's just going to be running to you. I will wait at the car and I'll wave to her like a thumbs up, and then she's good. And then I'm not going to sit at the practice. I do know several of the parents will come and sit at the practice with their kindergartner or first grader. I think they may even require it, but I just don't remember that rule. It just kind of left my mind. But I know sometimes Tom, you'll run during her practice. But it's just kind of the logistics of a large family is I can't be at every practice, and we just kind of work that out with the coach ahead of time.
So let's bring it into the home now and talk about the way that this sometimes has let's call it a living tension between mom and dad. Did you like the way I said that, dear?
Fight.
So honey calls it that. I said it's a living tension. And so here's a great one. It's sleeping outside. So, Kari, you make your case and I'll make mine, and we'll see where the listeners fall in.
Well, I think what you need to realize is it's how you're influenced. Whether you listen to the media and what's going on in the culture that influences your level of anxiety.
And by the way, this is going to be a little bit embarrassing because I know some people are going to say, Tom, are you really that
And it's if you were raised in the Northwest.
Intensely narrow like that? Or some people are going to say, Kari, are you serious? You're that open about things?
Well, this is where we really are opposites. I grew up...
No. Living tension.
Living tension.
Living
Is that
living
compliments
tension.
I meant.
Right.
Did I say opposites? Listen, I grew up with a lot of siblings, and my mom did not drive. She could not drive.
Hold on, we didn't tell the story. The story is that when it comes to sleeping in the backyard...
I'm making my argument.
No, don't make it. No. First, let's just say what it is. Then you can trace it back to why you come to that position.
All right.
So our kids will come to us during these wonderfully hot nights, and they make the announcement, we want to sleep in the backyard. And so, okay, fine. Well, what does that actually mean?
Well, I am all for them sleeping under the stars up on the grass, really getting that experience. We have these huge green evergreen trees that tower in the dark, and then the stars between it. It's just this wonderful, magical setting, and it's just the best experience to be out under the stars and talk about...
So sleeping bag on the grass, in the backyard, no tent.
Well, they could have a tent, but then you can't see the stars.
Okay, so you're...
And some mattresses. I mean, we've even brought out our queen-size mattress or a double mattress. We've pulled the mattresses out on the deck. Yeah.
On the deck, okay.
Not on the grass because they get wet. So this has been going on for 5 years. I started wanting to have them sleep outside when they were 8, 9 years old, because it was just I had the best memories growing up of sleeping outside.
Sleeping outside on
our patio,
in the backyard.
or down below where our fireplace was outside. There was a little sport court thing.
Well, and I just I'm thinking of you out. I'm thinking of being out on in our yard, just very recently out in the backyard, just on a sleeping bag, looking up. And and you think that's great, and the kids love that idea, and I say, no. I say, I don't support that idea. And I don't support that idea for a couple of reasons. The first is, I don't want them just exposed in the backyard. I know you're laughing because
okay,
there are
honey.
raccoons and there maybe a coyote.
Mice nibbling at them. Mosquitoes.
I just don't like that idea of them being so exposed in the backyard like that on the ground when
and there
they're
are
asleep.
people could walk
And
behind the
there are people,
house.
that maybe even people.
Like
so
intruders,
so
kidnappers.
what exactly? So what do I say? I say we have a trampoline. So they're fine if they want to sleep in the trampoline, but we pull the trampoline close to the house, and then they can.
And you set the alarm system. Just
So then the kids can sleep in the sleeping bag in the trampoline, and then you can zip down the zipper, and you can actually kind of close it off,
lock it.
or lock it in some way, so that not only will animals not be able to get into
Oh,
it.
that's why you like the trampoline.
Yeah, so they're off the
So
ground.
they can't get eaten by a
So any bear, I'm imagining that there's not a bear around, but a bear will appear.
yeah, probably.
And
Oh, well, that's good. See, and I love how you want to protect them and keep them safe. None of that even comes into my mind. I'm just thinking, looking up at the stars, talking about God's omnipotence, omnipresence, just the grandeur of nature and the freedom that you feel when you're under the stars.
yeah, and that's great. Let them feel that freedom, looking up out from the bottom of a trampoline.
Okay, so you do feel better, but they're older too. You probably wouldn't have allowed this a few years ago.
Yeah, so the kids that wanted to do that were from 8 years old up to 12 years old.
And I
so
think
it was in that range.
I think
So
I
that
would stay
happened.
with them too. We would initially sleep with them until 11, 12, 1, and then they'd all come in.
Well, that's what would happen. It would be so cold.
Time to go in. Okay.
So in any case, so that's one of those situations where, boy, you can see some of the tension that's there regarding maybe how a mom and a dad, how you and your spouse might be saying, well, I want them to make sure that they're going to be safe. And the other one's like, well, I want to make sure that they're going to actually be stretched. So just be aware that there are different tendencies. And so, Kari, part of that has to do with how we grew up. So very quickly, in 1 minute, give an example of what you were allowed to do growing up, and then I can share the same.
Well, and I think it's important to frame it. I see it as a sense of adventure, a sense of creativity, fun, excitement. I don't think of any of those fears or worries. It just is not in my mindset. So I grew up where I said my mom wasn't able to drive. We didn't have a lot of money. There were 12 kids. So if I wanted anything, I had to work for it. I had to have a job. I really had to learn problem-solving skills from a very young age. And if I wanted to go anywhere, I had to find a way to get there. So when I was in fifth grade, my mom, I think I badgered her and wore her out and wore her down. That's what happens when you have a lot of kids. They just, mom. I'm fine, go, do it. Whatever you want, just leave me alone. And I took the bus to downtown Seattle, and I would just walk about a mile from my house. This was in South Park. And the bus ride was only 20 minutes, not even, I don't know. And I just would go downtown, go to the different stores, enjoy myself, eat a little lunch at a restaurant, go in the hotels, and just pretend I was staying there. I don't know what. But I just loved the whole adventure of it. And eventually I'd catch a bus on 2nd Avenue and head back, typically before it got too dark. And there was not a real sense of fear at all. It was more just I had that freedom, that space. And
Right, and that was you at 4th or 5th grade.
yeah, and I could never understand why there were 4 girls in my neighborhood and now why none of them would be allowed to go with me.
Because they had parents like mine.
They're like, what?
Saying,
You're going
are
where?
you are you
And I was like,
kidding me?
yeah, it's going to be great.
So that's obviously, Kari, why that impacted you so much.
And my mom is a very much an adventurer. I mean, she left her city, town in South Dakota, came here by herself, one of 9 siblings, and really has that spirit of experiencing life.
And so just to say, so in my experience, my mom, who was able to be at home when we grew up, had a sense of wanting to know and checking in where were we going to be and driving us there. And that's how we would get there. We wouldn't be allowed to, say, ride our bikes a very long distance to get to a place. It would be when she could go and drop us off and pick us up. So there was just a stronger sense of providing that supervisory oversight. So what we want to focus in, though, is say, okay, be aware of your own past and how that's impacting you as parents in the present, but then be aware of the kind of skills that maybe you're not going to simply find in school itself, but they're going to be things that happen to your kids at school. And the question is, when and how do you get involved, and when and how do you allow your child to figure that stuff out? So it might not be about letting them get on a bus and take a ride somewhere. Really, it's about the journey or the ride that happens in, for instance, relationships. How quickly or early do you get involved if you have a child, a son or daughter, that's maybe struggling in a relationship? You heard that something happened. Somebody said something to somebody. So those are the kinds of situations where you and I can be talking, and you'll often say, Tom, you know what? I don't think we want to get involved in this. I think we need to let her struggle with this a bit. I think we need to let her figure this out. We can talk with her about it, but you know what? Let's not call the parents. Let's not try to intervene too strongly here. Let's let her figure this out.
Yeah, I mean, there are situations that it just doesn't require a parent to help navigate that, and they're going to need that skill or that experience later on because it's going to get harder and more difficult for them to work through. Maybe there was a dishonest comment that was made, or maybe an unkind text was sent. I mean, something like that. It's not like we're not
she got left out when
of a
other
party
kids were doing
or a
something,
gathering,
or
and it's not that we're apathetic. Oh, whatever, it's no big deal. It's just that these are hard things, lessons that they need to walk through because this is real life and it's going to get harder. And I can tell you sometimes we will drop our child off at a party like Mary Grace, but I will check in with that parent. I will survey, make sure that they're going to be there the whole time. She's in high school. Just kind of know what's going on, who's there. I know the kids well enough. But then I drop Anne Marie off at a party for junior high and, hang out with the parents, talk to them, kind of take the temperature of what's going on with all these kids upstairs. And then I find out they're allowed to have a R-rated movie. And it's like, what? So as a parent, I'm attentive, but I'm also kind of, okay, so what did you do in that situation? How did you respond to this experience, And it's not like I'm asking 1,000 questions of the parents. They're not going to want to be bothered by me. There's a certain level of trust you need to have with adults. I mean, they're adults. They know they felt that movie was okay. Well, they just have different values than me, and we're going to deal with it in a way that's going to help our child move forward. And okay, lesson learned.
Well, and that's and so that is part of forming our kids with regards to certain types of skills that have to do with navigating through life. So it's not about not caring, just ignoring situations. And I think, for instance, there are ways that parents are out of just ignorance, not engaging where they ought to engage. For instance, how parents are involved in their kids' lives regarding the use of smartphones, the use of cell phones and social media. I think there's far too little awareness going on, or indifference when it comes to really engaging. That's on the one hand.
Yeah, you can pretty free range on an iPhone. There's a lot of freedom, and that's the trouble. That's the problem. Is just we're not talking experiencing cooking with a hot stove, or going to a store and walking around with your siblings, or going for a run with your sibling, and there's just this kind of safety. We're talking actual outside immoral influences, pitfalls, especially social feelings of inadequacy and feeling vulnerable. And so, it's not really about that. That's a whole nother issue. And that actually requires intense parenting and supervision. That takes a lot of time, and it's exhausting.
So we had another one just recently.
It's important.
We had a couple of our girls were committed to be involved in this service project. And one of the principal reasons they did is that their friends were attending with them. And then come to find out that their friends are not attending. But they've made a commitment. They're already in. So now here's the question. What do they do? And now there's resistance, and there's hemming and hawing, and there's I don't want to go anymore. And so it was like, well, okay, what do we do? Do we just swoop in and rescue them and say, well, I know you only wanted to go, or principal reason was your kids aren't going to be there. I totally understand that. Let me rescue you. Or is it just, hey, you made a commitment, you're in, you're done, forget it? Well, is there some middle ground? Is there something different? Is there another approach to take to say, hey, you know what? Let's take a look at this. I know that's disappointing, but you made a commitment. And so how can we maybe make this something that is enjoyable for you, where you're going to keep your commitment, but maybe we can recover some of what you've lost?
So you're talking about this sense of human formation in a service project where you need to stay committed. So this isn't so much free range. This is what free range leads to, is they're in a difficult situation. They don't want to go. There's a lot of resistance. But because we've allowed them to have to problem solve and be self-sufficient and independent in other situations, they realize, I can get through this. I can do this, and I may not like it. But heck, mom and dad are going to come. They're going to bring some special treats and drinks, and they're going to surround us. And, as need be, we will be there. But at the same time, they're on their own. It's like,
right.
You're going.
You're going. You're going to figure this out. But we're going to step in maybe a little bit more than we would have if they had the total support of their friends with them.
Just to kind of get them over the edge. I think that's what we did with the swim team. The two kids that made it to All City, one didn't. He made it to the Southern Division. They did not want to do this activity, and we kind of gave them some incentives and some ways in which they could feel motivated, and they did a great job. But it was allowing them to stumble and to feel that resistance and to fight through those more difficult things instead of going in and rescuing them, saying, yeah, you don't really need to go.
That's right. I'm not going to require you to do that.
And these are so important that, I'm just thinking of the things that I resist in my own life, Tom, things that I don't want to face. And it's like, how do you build that sense of pushing through, pushing forward, right, finding a way?
And the great word for this that St. John Paul II uses in his writings, or the phrase, is responsible freedom. That freedom is only free when freedom is lived responsibly.
Amen.
Yeah, just to finish up then, we just want to encourage you. Be encouraged. Go to currentcrew.tv. You'll be able to get other resources. Send us your feedback at info@currentcrew.tv. Thanks so much for joining us.
We look forward to having you join us on our next podcast.